Which generation of the Toyota 4Runner is the best? Well, the 4Runner first came to market in 1984 and it's now in its 5th generation, and there are a lot of different opinions within this topic of discussion. Doug DeMuro, who's very well respected within the car community, ranks the 4Runner in his order of preference on Auto Trader, putting the 3rd generation model at the top of the list, which is a very common sentiment, followed by the 2nd generation, and then the 5th generation, the 4th generation, and the 1st sitting at the bottom of the list. I do agree with some of his assessment, but overall, I do disagree a little bit with how he orders them at the top of the list. To me, it should go 5th generation model, followed by 3rd generation, followed by 2nd, 4th, and then the 1st. In today's video, I want to talk specifically about why I think the 5th generation model is better than the 3rd generation. Now, there's no denying that the 3rd generation model, the 4Runner, is a really great looking vehicle, and it has certainly stood the test of time very well, despite the fact that it's starting to show its age. It's amazing to think that this original design came out almost a quarter century ago, because again, it still looks so good. The other thing that's really great about this 3rd generation of the 4Runner is that when it was first introduced, it maintained much of the character and personality that you saw in the first 2 generations of the 4Runner, but gave the vehicle a much more modern overall look, and we saw a huge improvement in the overall build quality and fit and finish on the 3rd gen when compared with those first 2 generations. And while the vehicle, again, was a huge improvement when it first came out back in 1996, and it continues to be a really great looking vehicle today, I would still argue that the 5th generation is the better looking vehicle. I like the fact that this 5th generation really stands out from other SUVs that are on the market, much more so than what we saw with the 3rd gen when it was first introduced. This really is kind of a one-of-a-kind vehicle. It's got a very bold look to it, very aggressive look, unless that's too much for you, in which case they've got the limited package, which is a little bit more toned down. But overall, I think that the look of this vehicle is very one-of-a-kind, very unique, and I think that this vehicle is also going to go down as a classic. Now, you could argue that this is a newer vehicle, it's got more modern design language, that's the reason that you like it more. Is it going to be as timeless? And that's a good question. I would argue that it will be. The reason for that is that the 3rd generation model came out in 1996, ran through 2002 before it was replaced by the 4th generation model. That's a run of 6 years. In comparison, the 5th generation model came out in 2010. It's currently 2020, and at this point, they haven't come out with a release date for the 6th generation model. So it's possible that this model will continue for another year or two before that 6th generation model comes out. That means we're already 10 years into the production run of this vehicle, and maybe looking at another 1 or 2 years. That's almost double what we see with the 3rd generation model. I think that this vehicle really is going to go down as a classic. The 3rd generation 4Runner was offered with 2 different engine options, the base engine being a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder with 150 horsepower and a combined EPA rating of 17 miles per gallon. This vehicle's got the more popular 3.4 liter V6, which has 183 horsepower and a combined EPA rating of 16 miles per gallon. So horsepower on both of these engine options is very meager, and fuel economy isn't all that impressive either, but people loved them anyway because they were incredibly reliable. Flash forward to the 5th generation model, and we now have a 4 liter V6 on most 4Runners. They did offer a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder for the 2010 model year in rear-wheel drive configuration only. That engine was dropped after 2010, and again, you'll see this 4 liter V6 going forward. It's got 270 horsepower and an EPA rating of 18 miles per gallon. So not only do we see a huge bump in overall horsepower, we also see a slight bump in fuel economy. And as far as reliability and durability goes, this vehicle likewise is tried and tested and has a great reputation for reliability. We actually see this power plant first show up in the 2003 4Runner 17 years ago. It was also used in the 2nd generation Tacoma, so it's really been tried and tested. It's definitely starting to show its age in 2020 in terms of horsepower and fuel economy, but again, it's kind of old school, just like we see with that 3rd generation model, but you're getting better power output, better fuel economy, and you're still getting that great reputation for reliability. Now, it's a little bit unfair to be comparing the interiors of 2 vehicles that differ in age by about 20 years, but I still think that it's worth doing because the 5th generation model really does see a huge improvement over the 3rd gen model. Now, likewise, when this 3rd generation model came out, it was a huge improvement over the 2nd generation model that it replaced. Really has a much more modern feel than what we saw in that 2nd gen. And this 4Runner was part of a very small group of SUVs that helped to usher in the era of luxury SUVs. You'll see that we get leather seats, we've got a sunroof, We've got wood accents on the dash, and just overall pretty nice interior for this era. We also see a pretty nice improvement in the overall build quality and refinement of this vehicle when compared with that second generation model. Now, one thing that people either love or hate about this third gen model is that it's pretty small. So it's got a very cozy feel to it. It's one of the great things about going down those narrow trails, but likewise, it can be a little bit tight inside of the cabin. I'd say that legroom is a little bit tight, and you'll see there was this rear seat. If you were to put 3 passengers back here, it could definitely be a little bit on the tight side. Now, going to the back of the vehicle, cargo space is pretty good back here as well. Plenty of space there. Now, coming over to the 5th generation model now, without a doubt, the thing that is most noticeable going between the 3rd generation and 5th generation model is that the overall build quality and refinement in this vehicle is far superior to what we see in the 3rd gen. Things are just much more solid, much more substantial, smaller gaps. Everything just has a much more high quality feel than what we see in the 3rd generation. Obviously, the design is much more modern as well. We've got kind of the fake brushed aluminum accents here, some chrome accents as well, the 2-tone pleather seats. Very nice cabin overall. This is the SR5 Premium model, so it's kind of a step up from the base model. So you're not really seeing a whole lot of added fluff because of the trim package necessarily. Once you get up to those higher end trim packages, things amplify further. Again, this is kind of near the base, and it's still a pretty nice overall interior. You'll see we've got power mirrors on the steering wheel, a number of vehicle controls, audio controls, Bluetooth controls. Right here we've got our center infotainment screen, which is a touch screen. We've got AM/FM radio, CD, satellite radio. This duals as a backup camera. We've got heated seats for driver and front passenger. Just overall, very nice cabin. I won't go into all of the luxury and tech features, but a nice improvement over what we see available in the 3rd gen. Of course, many of those things do come with time. I talked a little bit about size, and again, this is one of those things that people either love or hate. You may like the smaller size of the 3rd gen because it's a little bit better for going down those tight trails, but when it comes to the spaciousness of the cabin, 5th generation model really does see a nice improvement here. You'll see that we have no problem fitting 2 car seats in the back, and then the other great thing is that if you wanted to seat 3 passengers in this back seat, wouldn't really be a problem, whereas the 3rd gen be very difficult. Coming to the back, you'll see that again we've got pretty good rear cargo space. And then the other great thing about the 5th gen that you didn't have available in the 3rd generation model is this available 3rd row seat, which pops out of the floor here, increasing seating capacity in the 5th gen to 7, whereas the 3rd gen model only had seating capacity for up to 5. So we see a really nice improvement in overall refinement, build quality, luxury and tech features, and we now have seating capacity for up to 7. The 4Runner has a great reputation for off-road capability, and I think that's a category that's really important to consider when comparing these various generations. Now, the 3rd generation model does have a few advantages within this category. For starters, it has more standard ground clearance, sitting at 11 inches when compared with the 9.6 that you get in 5th generation, and it's a much smaller vehicle overall, so it's going to be more nimble for going down tight trails. The 5th generation model is actually about 5 inches wider than what we see with the 3rd gen model. Now, both vehicles do have available 4-wheel drive with a 4-low and 4-high option and available locking differentials. So both vehicles are obviously very capable, but despite the fact that the 3rd generation model has a few advantages, I'd still go with the 5th generation model. For starters, all 5th generation 4Runners come with their A-Track system, which is a traction control system. If you have wheel spin on your rear axle, the vehicle is actually able to basically brake on that spinning wheel and transfer more of that torque to the other side of the vehicle, helping you to get out of sticky situations. The other change that we see is that with the 3rd gen model, we had the SR5 or the limited package. Going forward to the 5th generation, we now have the SR5, the SR5 Premium, the TRD Off-Road Premium. We have the limited model, the new Venture Edition, and we've got the TRD Pro model. So a number of different trim packages to suit your individual needs. Within those, the TRD Off-Road and the TRD Pro add a number of features that make them very capable if that's what you're looking for. With the TRD Pro, we get upgraded all-terrain tires. At the front of the vehicle, we get an upgraded skid plate. And then both of those models have upgraded suspension and locking differentials. So while the 3rd generation model is incredibly capable, unless you're going down a narrow trail, the 5th generation model is the one that I would choose. So this video is by no means intended to bash the 3rd generation 4Runner, because it really is one of the greatest SUVs of all time. A great classic exterior design, really was a pioneer in terms of the level of refinement, luxury, and tech features for its era. Very reliable, durable vehicle, and incredible off-road capability. But despite all of those great things about the 3rd generation 4Runner, I still think the 5th generation model does it better. I like the styling on this vehicle more, obviously because it's a newer vehicle, we get a lot more luxury and tech features. Love the fact that it's a little bit more spacious inside, a little more usable, and it's got that seating capacity for up to 7. Just as we saw in the 3rd generation model, it is incredibly reliable, durable, and very capable for off-road driving. I'm sure there are plenty out there that will disagree with my assessments of the 3rd gen and 5th generation 4Runners. If you agree or disagree, love to hear your comments in the section below. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to give me a thumbs up. In the meantime, thanks for watching.